to Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the nation.
What is today, the 19th?
Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this 26th day of March. Got a great show with you for tonight. A lot of NFL rule changes, change to the kickoff, eliminating the hip drop here. Talk about that. Plus, Hard Knocks going to full division. Talk a little bit about that a little bit later. Big story here. Shohei Ohtani has spoke. I haven't talked about this. This story's been kind of hovering, and the ground swells getting bigger. Some of the national shows are touching on it and quickly getting off of it for whatever reason. So I'm going to talk about that, a little bit more of an in-depth look into that. Tennessee Titans, since the last time I've been on the program, made a big trade. Looking like a dark horse team. They're really playing out the way I thought they would right now, and I'll talk about that. L'Jarius Sneed there trade last week. I got some sound for that as well. But first, let's take our first and only break. I'll be back here in 49 seconds. Hit the ground running here on Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to Sports, that is Sports with an S, another S, Scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program. Righty then, I'm back here live on All Links. Okay, now, so Shohei Ohtani, as I said before the break, this story has blossomed over the past week. Now, national shows leading up to March Madness. Last week, in my opinion, seemed to be ignoring the story. It wasn't even coming on my feed on the X app, and I follow some national reporters here. I thought this was a theft story at first. Did not think anything about it. I've heard of trainers stealing from players before, and those NBA player had like $5,000 stole from me from a trainer once before. It just kind of just passed through. A lot of NFL news came about last week. We had the tournament coming up. Think about it this way. The largest contract in the history of Major League Baseball was signed, was it past December, Ohtani with the LA Dodgers. It was one of the biggest stories of the offseason. Plus, folks, it's Tuesday. And 48 hours from now, the Major League Baseball season is going to start. Nobody wanted to talk about this. The baseball has slowly been on the uphill. I think ratings and stuff have went up slightly from the rule changes with the pitch clock and everything. But gambling has, ironically, it's not even legal. It's not even legal in the state of California, but sports gambling has been growing across the country, And I guess I'm saying all this. A lot of the national media ignored this story. I think Colin Cowherd finally said something Thursday or Friday on it, but I know it had been going on all week. Did not know that this gambling debt of his interpreter. Okay, rewind back to the beginning here. This interpreter has known Ohtani since 2013. We're talking 11 years practically, almost here. And this guy has got into gambling debts. This is according to ESPN stories I've got going back to last week, with stories I've read up on from The Athletic this week up to his press conference yesterday, denying all this stuff, but in a sense. But basically what happened was his interpreter, this is a story, obviously, it's being told, had ran up gambling debts. If you're sitting down, stay sitting down. $4.5 million in gambling debts. This is the most I've ever heard of in this. For example, I want to say Calvin Ridley got suspended by the NFL for what, 1,000, 1,500? Now, it was on the NFL bet. He did bet. He got suspended for a year for that. Okay. But this guy, interpreter, according to these ESPN stories, going back to this time last year, okay, started accumulating gambling debts with the illegal bookmaker in California, going back to early last year, this time last year. Those debts, Ohtani was paying these debts through his account. By the way, this guy is the illegal bookmaker, investigated by the U.S. District Attorney or whatever, Central District of California. You've heard of Southern District of New York. I've only heard that off the show Billions. But the Southern District of California, which is a federal agency, have been investigating this illegal bookmaker. But increments going back from September, October, from early last year's debt, that gambling debts, and went up to $4.5 million. And Ohtani's giving this guy on the average of $500 from his account, $500,000 increments to this illegal bookmaker in gambling debts. Okay. And I guess the reason why that your ESPNs and Fox, they touched on it. Colin Cowherd says, kids, they got a lot of money. They got a lot of free time. They can gamble, you know? And I thought, man, you are just, because he's in LA. I get it. I get the temptation. But this is $4.5 million. And this interpreter said last week that he's been fired, by the way. So he's been fired by the Dodgers. But this guy says Ohtani was giving him Ohtani didn't gamble. He says it wasn't on baseball. But he says Ohtani was paying him the money back to pay off his debts, okay, through the transfers in his account. Now, fast forward to Monday, yesterday, Ohtani says, through his other interpreter, that that he didn't have any knowledge, and he's reporting a theft. The guy stole the money from him. Now, that's kind of hard for me to believe if what is being said is true, if this were done in increments, because you're even if you got his kind of money. Ohtani just signed a $700 million contract. I think he was making about 30 last year. Even if you're, even with his kind of money, folks, $500,000 increments you're not going to notice coming out of your bank account. This is going to be hard for him to prove. Now, that might not be true. Maybe it was all at once. I don't know. But that's what ESPN's reporting. Okay? So you're starting to get the gist of it. Now, Get Up today played this guy from Jeff Passan, a reporter from MLB. This Get Up show was on ESPN. Listen to what he says of what the MLB, what are their what do you say it? What are the rules here? The MLB rules. What's the precedent? He drops a name. Listen up. If I can find it here. Had a lot of notes for this story, man. I was up reading this story at 5 o'clock in the morning all the way through. It's pretty interesting. Listen up. This is Get Up This Morning. This is a ESPN reporter here.
Number one, there's been one penalty associated with gambling in recent years, and that was for Jarrett Cosart, a pitcher who, a little less than a decade ago, was caught gambling with an illegal bookmaker, not on baseball, and the penalty was a fine. And I think the second part is the important part. Again, Ohtani stressed, I have not gambled, and especially have not gambled on baseball, because if you are caught gambling on baseball by Major League Baseball, if it's another team that you are betting on, Greeny, it is a 1-year suspension. If you are caught gambling on your own team, that is a lifetime ban in the sport, which is why I think Shohei Ohtani, in the telling of his story, was so firm and so fervent about that being the case.
Yeah, so you heard all the rules there. I mean, could Ohtani, I keep wanting to say Sinead O'Connor, the lady singer. She's Portland resident, so I think Irish singer from about 30 years ago. I think she is passed on. But Sinead Ohtani, and I thought I had we'll see if I have this. Pete Rose is banned for life. We know that. I got a soundbite from Pete Rose if I can find it. Let's see what we got here. This is Pete Rose once he heard about the interpreter.
Well, back in the 70s and 80s, I wish I'd have had an interpreter. I'd be scot-free.
It does seem like a lame excuse, and something of this magnitude. I was looking at some of the could he be charged with a crime? Ohtani, and Sporting News put out a Sporting News have brought got an opinion from a legal from a lawyer here who specializes in these type of crimes. He says, like, I got this from Sporting News. The federal government usually doesn't charge the underlying crime. They don't charge you with the crime of using an illegal bookie. This guy Marcelo explains what they do instead. Almost universally charge wire fraud, bank fraud, tax fraud. Of course, tax fraud, that's a lot of money. Tax fraud, things with the IRS, incapacity legal activities. You can't send $500,000 to a bank account and not report that to the IRS. That's what I thought. There are all these anti-terrorism and banking laws. I can guarantee a violation of one of them or multiple of them. So he's turned it over to his lawyers. Ohtani has. And my opinion is there a chance that Ohtani could be banned for life? Well, you got this, the gratitude of this, the level of this. That's for, I mean, man, I tell the NFL guys, just a few hundred here and there, $1,500 little dollars. Calvin Ridley got suspended for a year. We're talking $4.5 million. And again, it's hard to, why would you give your interpreter your bank account number? So he's going to have to prove that. He's going to have to prove that, Ohtani is. Now, by looking at this, the governor and MLB is working with also in that the ESPN, they're working with investigators. So are you? I think there's a possibility that could be traced, that he bet on baseball and his team winning. And I understand he's the best two-way player since Babe Ruth. He's a phenom. I get all that. But, you know, this used to be the saying about the NFL Shield. No one player, not Babe Ruth, not Barry Bonds. We found out about that. Not Mark McGwire, Roger Clemens. None of those names are bigger than that shield. And that's what Major League, although slow to react, they do lay the hammer. They will suspend you for half a season. They will suspend you for a whole season for PEDs. When it finally, when they got pushed against the wall, that's what happened. So I know a lot of people just don't want, a lot of fans want this story to go away, but I was a little disappointed to read that. I understand that you get bored, you get a lot of free time. Your Colin Cowherd, he makes those type of, poo-poos it. But you also got to realize this is a major privilege of playing this game. I understand that gambling has become legal. Not all states, but it's growing, sports gambling. I wager on some games, nothing major. I have a lot of fun this past weekend while working, of course, longer hours, extra long hours, betting on the March Madness thing, having a good time with that. But you do not want the perception that the game's fixed in any way, shape, form, or fashion. That's why, that's why you got to lay the hammer down on guys like this. There's a in my mind, this is just from what I've read, there's a 5% chance that they find out that these wagers were made on games he played in for the Angels. Prop bets or something like that. Since it's an illegal bookmaker, you can bet on anything. The legal bookmakers got a lot of prop bets. There's been an NBA player. I didn't catch his name, but I also heard Adrian Wojnarowski. He was he wasn't a star, but he's being investigated for prop betting in the NBA. That was out. Adrian Wojnarowski was talking about that this morning as well. So, obviously, does it seem hypocritical? Yes, it's a way to make money. But again, if you're generating money, it's going to pay the players more salaries, which you kind of get these guys understand the way the business works here. In my opinion, like I said, there's a 5% chance of that happening. He's not bigger than the Shield. People will get over it. The revenue, the game will go on. I don't think that'll happen, but I do think that it's going to be hard for him to prove he wasn't gambling. I think he's going to get into some trouble, and I do think this will be a distraction for the Dodgers. The season starts Thursday. Maybe I'll give you my predictions. I'm not very good in baseball, but I'll look at it anyways. Maybe talk about that Thursday when the season starts here. I think something like this is it. Maybe they move faster than I would think, but I get a sense this is going to hang over this Dodger team all year long, and I'm pretty sure they're the odds-on favorite with the players like him, and of course the Japanese pitcher here. This huge investment, favorites to win the World Series. I do think this is going to be a cloud over them. I'll have to really think about who I picked to win the World Series coming up. But I just am amazed the way this has kind of just been glossed over. Now I know Mac and Jack and Sanja Pearson, by the way, I'm going on Prime Proper Sports, 9 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow, I don't know what we're going to talk about, but I'll be on her program tomorrow. You can find her on the NESSP app. But they talked about it Sunday. Good for them. Again, very little from the national people. They want this story to go away, but it's a big story. It is a big story, and it's one that I personally will monitor here. Let's see, where do we go next? Okay, something. I mentioned John Calipari here. Some breaking news. I just read this. He will remain the head coach of Kentucky. Last week they lost to Oakland. Talk about that a little bit in good scope, bad scope. Just read that. Okay, monster trade. Been talking about NFL not trade deadline, but that's been pushed up. By the way, it's been pushed up 1 week till I think like November 7th or something like that. Used to be October 31st, so it's up to week 9. By the way, but the NFL free agency. I'm out of Nashville, and I think that the Titans have done a tremendous job here. Really proud of Cream Blackston. Had a great show. Listen to that next. When you get a chance, go back in the archives. Long show there. Went a little over there. But they have made a trade. I want to say this went down on Friday. late Friday night, they made a trade here for L'Jarius Sneed. We talked about that. And, you know, I know it was a little rich, but looking at his numbers here for the contract, the trade itself was great. You know, a third-round pick in 2025 and switching seventh-round picks. Tennessee, folks, has not had a cornerback of this magnitude. After this thing plays out, there's a possibility the Titans, since they've been the Titans, not the Tennessee Oilers, not the Houston Oilers. Let's go back almost a quarter of a century, 1999. The best corner they had, two of the best corners, all pro, 1 year though, Samari Rolle, 2000, okay? Then they got Cortland Finnegan, diamond in a rough, a seventh-round pick, made a Pro Bowl, I want to say 2008, all right? Joked around about that with Kareem Blackston, you know, the guy could take a punch from Andre Johnson and everything. So this team has Sneed is. I looked up his Sneed. You know, you gave a third-round pick, and I'm glad they didn't give up a second-round pick, which is a 38 pick overall. They switched seventh-round picks this year, so they signed him to a 4-year contract. The numbers came out a few hours ago. $76 million deal, 55 guaranteed over 4 years. And, of course, they played Chidobe Awuzie, 3 years, 36, 23 guaranteed from this team. I'll say this, the importance of this. Over the past few years, I would be doing daily fantasy. I would simply put the best receiver, especially if they were hot, like a Mike Evans, you know, I pencil in 8 catches, 140 yards, and a touchdown, maybe 2 against Tennessee. You know, I would always take the speedy receiver or the top receiver against the opposition, especially if the opposition did not play in the division. Okay, that is a big, big move. Tennessee is just not. This guy could be better than. He's definitely number 3 in 25 years. He could be the best. He's good in the open field to making open field tackles. He's a good pure cover corner. I got a sound bite on that here in just a second. You can use him in run blitz. We saw that with Kansas City. Listen what Ja'Marr Chase said about him last year. He was taking a shot at the team, but it gives Sneed his props here. Here's Ja'Marr Chase, great receiver from the Cincinnati Bengals, on L'Jarius Sneed last year.
They can't do it one-on-one. The best player on their team is Sneed. That's a fact. Everybody knows that. That's why
he's saying that Sneed is the best player on their team. I think he's talking about the defense. Now, of course, obviously, you take the tackle over the corner, but that's how big a deal this is. I mean, they've already got Jeffrey Simmons over the top of the ball. Okay. Awuzie and Sneed there. That's the best tandem I know they've had since they've been the Titans, folks. That is the best tandem they've had. And I've been watching them just about every game. Some of them unwatchable. They've been getting destroyed. But Carthon is doing a really good job here, you know. But so, you know, like I was telling guest Kareem Blackston the other day, you know, they've got the corner. They've got another receiver they can depend on, Calvin Ridley. If you look back at some of the catches he made last year, just unbelievable. Got him last year. Tennessee simply outbid New England, Jacksonville, The girlfriend he liked the taxes here. He liked the weather. Everything seemed to work out for him. But I'm telling you, this team right here is, and this is where you want to be at. You know, they're being overlooked. They're being overlooked by the national media. Everybody's talking about Houston, okay? And rightfully so. Houston's played well. Seemed like they hit it on the coach. It seemed like they've hit well with Stroud there at the quarterback position. Their offensive coordinator was being talked about for head coaching jobs at 36 years old. And Bobby Slowick. And they got Danielle Hunter, the best pass rusher. And then you've got Trevor Lawrence coming back. He's going to be healthy. They got a new defensive coordinator in Jacksonville. The Colts have one of the best offensive lines they got in a year. Tennessee's pretty much going to be picked at last place. But, you know, Brian Callahan, Will Levis is coming into his second year. What does that say? You know, teams don't tell you what they're going to do. They show you. Don't listen to people what they tell you. Watch what they do. This tells me that there's some belief in Will Levis. Okay? This tells me there is some belief in Will Levis. They've got the offensive line. There's a very good chance they're going to get Joe Alt, especially with the rumors coming out of Minnesota moving up to possibly 2, possibly 3. So we're talking 4 quarterbacks, may go 1, 2, 3, 4. Played that clip yesterday. A lot of you like that clip. Okay. You got a team like Tennessee. You got a team like the Giants. They're going to get their pick of the litter. Who's the other one? The Chargers, if they don't trade down, of the best 9 quarterbacks out there. And Joe Alt's one of the better ones. Him and Marvin Harrison's way up there. But Tennessee is a dark horse. Listen to what Brian Callahan said today at today's owner meetings about the Calvin Ridley situation, about Will Levis. If I can get it to play, I will play it. Listen up. On to NFL Network.
I think most people thought that he was going to Jacksonville. It didn't happen until the Wednesday of free agency, so a long wait. How did this transpire for you? And when did you find out?
Talking to Brian Callahan.
Getting this guy?
Yeah, we had Calvin initially targeted in our first plan of free agency, just to kind of keep track of where his market went, what the interest was. So we sort of kept in constant contact through the initial part of the free agency period. And we were interested, and we were just trying to see where it would all fit. We had some other targets and players that we were looking to potentially bring back, go sign, just like every free agency period. And some guys went other places, and we ended up having a little bit more money to kind of sweeten the deal and go make a run at him at the that evening we went after him. So we ended up talking to him, as that process was going along, get him a chance, because it's always awkward when you're trying to sign guys and then they don't know anything about you. And so it was great. Rand and I got on the phone on Wednesday with him and just had a chance to visit and just pitched what we were trying to build and what he would mean to us. And obviously money talks in free agency, but it's a huge addition for us. He's a really, really good player. I think will add a lot of explosiveness to our offense.
Let's talk about the guy going to get him the football. Will Levis with that big arm. A lot of times you talk about a quarterback. You're like, if you get a Ferrari, you're not going the speed limit, right? You want to hit that thing as hard as possible. Well, I mean, drive safely, folks. But with Levis and that ability, when you look at it, you build this offense. How do you tap into that?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that Will did really well in his second half of the season. There's a lot of things I think we can use that to improve on too. I think having that tape and having his experience is really beneficial going into year 2 for him. Being able to have the entire offseason worth of reps, knowing that you're the starting quarterback, I think goes a long way, and being able to make those improvements. But he has got all kinds of legitimate talent, and so we're trying the best we can to surround him with as many good players as possible to give him a chance at success. And I like everything I've seen from Will. I love his attitude. I love his competitiveness. I love his toughness. And obviously he's got physical talent as well. With some of the throws he put on tape last year were pretty impressive. So,
yeah, that sounds like a guy that wants to keep this quarterback. None of this, well, we may make a trade. We haven't made our mind up yet. We want to do what's best. Those type of lines, that if you hear that from your head coach, that tells me that they're not sold. Those comments you just heard from the NFL Network from Brian Callahan, that he likes what he sees on tape. They were showing some highlights of playing that cut. This guy goes through his reads. He's checking down. That line's going to be much better. As I said last week with Levis, and I think Callahan can clean a lot of this up, is you can't always get the big throw. And we know you're going to have some big-time players. Trayvon Burks, hopefully he's lost 25, 30 pounds and in the best shape of his career. If not, they're going to move on from him. But then you've got a Calvin Ridley and, of course, DeAndre Hopkins in the last year of his contract, and a Okonkwo at tight end. And you got two speedy running backs who can also catch the ball out of the backfield and can run between the tackles here. I think Spears can run with power if needed. 200 yards in that one game against USC. Running backs take their biggest step from year one to year two. I think Spears will end up being the starter over Pollard, but we'll see. There's going to be a competition at everything. He's going to have to take the check down some and just don't force it into double coverage. You're going to have the line to move the ball. Make it a third and 4 versus a 3rd and 10 on an incompletion or a turnover. So they're a dark horse. I really think this team has a chance to make the playoffs next year and make some noise here. When you've got a quarterback on the second year of his contract and you believe in him somewhat, not saying he's going to be a star. He didn't have the rookie year of a C.J. Stroud, but now they've got the offensive-minded head coach. They've got him weapons. Okay. This is how you're supposed to do it, and that's what Tennessee has done. I really like the fact that they've got Snead and Aduzue. They've got balance. They didn't put it all on offense. They still have, and like Kareem said, my guest last week, listen, they could take the defensive tackle from Texas if they want. They don't necessarily have now to get a corner, which one mock draft I read last week had them in the second round getting a cornerback, the one from Iowa I was telling you about. They don't have to do that. They don't have to get a receiver. They're not obligated to get a receiver in the first nor the second round. That's when you know you are in good standing. You simply take the best player available. And that's what they'll do. So maybe they do get that tackle from Texas if he's still there, And, of course, maybe they do get the receiver. Maybe they don't believe in Banks or Burks or whatever. But they can also add another guard, maybe add a right guard there, maybe add a center. Maybe they don't like what they got. Because I know that there's a very good player out of University of Connecticut that may fall to the second round that very well could be a Titan. So there's a very good pickup there.
I'm excited to get to work.
And here is more from Brian Callahan.
You've been with some amazing quarterbacks throughout the course of your career, from Stafford to Peyton Manning to Burrow, Derek Carr. I'm not putting Will Levis in that category at this point. Obviously, he's got a long way to go. But are there little things just in your interactions with him, or even things you pick up on tape to say, okay, this guy's got a chance?
Yeah, there's no doubt. Obviously, been fortunate to be around the players that I've been around. It's some guys go whole careers without being around guys like that, and I've had a handful, which is I feel fortunate to have that experience. It does help with being with a young quarterback like Will, who I think has all the talent. But when you see the toughness he displayed last year, standing in the pocket, taking some hits. I'd like him to take less ultimately. But just the way he competed, I think when you have that mindset and you have that will and desire to be a really good player, you have a chance to make some jumps. And he has obviously the requisite.
Yeah. So that's what I said. He's going to have to. It's better to see your quarterback take the hits and make the throw. Like a Phil Simms, for example, he was one of the best at that. There's a clip of him back in the day. Phil Simms, former Super Bowl winning quarterback with the Giants, had a bloody chin. He just sit there and take the big hits, but he'll make the throw downfield. You rather him dump it off, move out. He's got to work on his shifting. Those things can be cleaned up. Okay. It's just guys who look totally lost out there, who can't read any kind of defense, does not go through any progressions. Those are the players you need more work with, and Levis is not one of those players. So, and he's not that injury prone, although he was injured coming into last year. I like more about him once I've seen him than I did him coming in. So that's a very good trade. Tennessee is one of those teams on the uptick. I think they've had the best free agency. Washington had the most money. Washington's had some good players come in, but not as much. Tennessee's made the big splashy plays. They got off on a slow start. They made the splashy moves late. It's usually the other way around. You get the splashy moves late, and then you kind of teeter off as free agency goes along. That wasn't the case with Tennessee. They picked up Tony Pollard. Nobody thought of nothing about that. And then all of a sudden, a few days later, bam, Calvin Ridley, and then bam, you got Snead, so a woozy way. You've got the Cushenberry. I mean, the center there from Denver they've had a really good offseason, maybe the best that I've seen here in a long time. Okay, so good scope, bad scope. Where I was right, where I had something wrong. Good scope. John Calipari, Kentucky loses again early in tournament. They lose a game to a school named Oakland. I thought they were in Oakland, California. It's in Michigan somewhere, Oakland University. The one and done model hasn't worked. They're trying they cannot beat these teams with veterans with 3 and 4 years experience. Today, by the way, hey, Wesley, Nigel. Today, by the way, it came out, University of Kentucky. Calipari, according to Kentucky Radio, and this On3 site I follow from the XApp, Calipari will remain the head coach of Kentucky next season. I'm sure he's had that talk that was reported last week, that he's had the talk that he's going to stay with Kentucky. What he's probably going to do is, this guy could develop at one time. He can coach. John Calipari, I don't know, Wesley, I don't know how much, or Nigel, I don't know how much you are into in the NBA and college basketball. But in 1996, he recruited and developed Marcus Camby, who went very high in the 96 draft to the New York Knicks with the Minutemen, the University of UMass. They were the number one team in the country. In 96, they got to the national championship game. This guy was not he was not a 3-star player. He was not a 5-star. He was like a 2 or 3-star guy. They didn't really have the star system big then. Ultimately, ironically, they lost to Kentucky, who coaches now, to Rick Pitino. I think he's going to alternate that. He's not going to lean too much into it. Now, if he says one thing and does another one, because I know one thing he said after the game, which nobody wanted to hear, it's all about the kids and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking to myself, listen, man, we know you've got a lot of players in the NBA. You've got the most all-star players of any player from one college in 1 year. Kentucky. Kentucky had guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Shaq said he would put him as the MVP of the league. Devin Booker. Guys like that. All these former Kentucky players. Jamal Murray should have been an all-star from Denver. He played in Kentucky. your job is to coach teams to win championships in the college level. Your job is not to be a glorified agent. Okay, stop talking about the NBA. Nobody wants to hear that when you're losing the first game to a team named Oakland in the tournament with all these prospects. You can't win with these lottery picks who are 19 years old playing against guys 22, 23 years old, even though they're not better NBA prospects in air quotes. So I think he will, though. I think people are really frustrated with Calipari. I actually think that he got the memo this week. Bad scope. Kentucky may want to look at hiring. I was wrong about Richard Pitino. I think he's rumored to get some other job, but it's not going to be the Kentucky job. That's the son of the great Rick Pitino, who's been to like five or six NCAA tournaments with 5 or 6 NCAA teams. He's won 2 national championships, one with Louisville, one with Kentucky. I think Richard Pitino, his son, 41-year-old son, who's coached New Mexico, who got beat by Clemson. This guy had Jamal Mashburn Jr., the son of Jamal Mashburn, former NBA player. And he also had Jalen House's son, Hayden House, the son of Eddie House. Jalen House, the son of Eddie House. Excuse me. Jalen House. Jalen. But they ended up losing. I was wrong about that. I thought they were going to go on a Sweet 16 run and be playing this Thursday or Friday. I was wrong about that. He's not going to get the Kentucky job, and he didn't win. He didn't make that run with those 2 former NBA players as sons. A few U.S. college players. Oh, yeah, Australia, yeah, in the NBA. I think, did Andrew Bogut, isn't he from Australia, Nigel? That used to be the center for the Golden State Warriors. Of course, I may be wrong there. But anyways, okay. Good scope. Where I was right, I thought Tennessee should go after Jarius Sneed. That money was a little rich, but yes. So Bogut was. Nigel says Bogut is from Australia. Yeah. The Titans got L'Jarius Sneed, the great cornerback that Jamar Chase says is the best player on the team, defensively. A great Cincinnati Bengal. I was right. They got it. I still think it's a good play. Bad scope. The NCAA tournament would have a bunch of upsets. It's going to be all over the place. It's going to be a mess. There was only one major upset, and it was obviously Kentucky. This whole segment, I'm just taking a big dump on Kentucky. Good friend of mine is a big Kentucky fan, and he's from Kentucky, goes to church with me, and he is just beside himself. They don't have anything. They don't have any pro teams up there. It's really Kentucky basketball for the whole state, right? And he was really upset, that they lost again. It's a glamour program up there, but they were the only team that lost. It's a lot of chalk. Committee did a good job. I still hope that with the news that came out last week with the NBA, that they're doing away with the G League. From the comments that Adam Silver said, this was like 2 weeks ago, that the growth of the NIL, name, image, and likeness, there's some hints that maybe they're going to push the age limit back, or push it back 2 or 3 years. I would prefer 3 years out of high school and get players back in college, get them more developed, and have them more pro ready. Plus, they'll be better marketed. These players will make more money once they get to the NBA. I hope that comes to fruition. Okay, all you activists out there, everything's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. They're not going to starve to death, media, news media. So anyways, there was some other news. There was some big news out of the NFL, folks. Oh man. Okay. So they have changed
They can't.
the oh God, where should I start here? Where should I start? They've changed the kickoff rule. You cannot you have to tell people, you have to tell the opposition that you're going to do an onside kick. Didn't like that. The two teams, this is a very excellent, it's what it is. It's and I may try to get Mike Westhoff, current special teams and assistant head coach for the Denver Broncos, used to be the special teams coach for Sean Payton back when he was with the Saints, and he was also special teams coach with the Jets back in the early 2008 to like 2012. Okay, under Rex Ryan, Mike Westhoff, arguably the best special team coach in the NFL. But the teams are moved closer together. There's going to be kickoff returns. That's going to be exciting, actually. I looked at it. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be shorter kicks, but you've got clever coaching. Andy Reid liked that. I thought, yeah, because you're good at coaching end rounds and stuff like that. Throwback passes. You can do all that stuff, but you're going to have to return it. It's going to be more likelihood of returning it, and it's supposed to just going to be a 1-year test now to eliminate injuries and just lack of football being played. And most of the balls have been the lack because they moved it up. Most of the footballs are going to be kicked through the end zone. So that's a big change. Also, again, the trade deadline got moved back from week 8 to week 9. So now it's like the 7th of November. It's a little closer to, I like that, a little closer to Thanksgiving, giving teams a little bit more time. This is stuff that got voted on in the owners' meetings. What's the guy's name here? The coach for Detroit. If you win a challenge, you will get one of your challenges back. Okay? You will get one of your challenges back here. The Lions put that up to challenge, and they won that. So you got that. Let's see. I think there's one more big one here, and I want to make sure. Oh, Hard Knocks, folks. Hard Knocks, in-season Hard Knocks fans. That will be done for entire division. Okay. The NFL's Brian Rollout says in-season. Mike Gaffaro put this out on the X out. He says Hard Knocks will now focus on the entire division, not just one team. So you could this. Now this will be something I'll probably get HBO back for. I watched the in-season one. I want to say with the Arizona a few years ago. It's really good. Actually, I watched 2 of them. I watched the one with the Colts, Nigel, and I watched the in-season one with Arizona. Check this out. Both of the coaches got fired at the end, and I could see the frustration in the spirit, particularly the Colts there. If you recall, a couple of years ago, Frank Wright, Carson Wentz. They go down to Jacksonville, choke it away at the end, get smoked by Jacksonville, and then Jacksonville goes into the playoffs that year, 2 years ago. So Jim Irsay went crazy and you could see he was ticked at the end of those games. And then we later found out he fired Frank Wright, and they ended up moving off of Carson Wentz. So far, it looks like it's been a pretty good gamble. Carson Wentz didn't get picked up by anybody, neither did Frank Wright. Frank Wright's already been fired again. Remember, he got fired last year by the Carolina Panthers. Dellavedova played. Yeah, I forgot about Dellavedova. He had a great run that year with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Nigel's from Arizona from my podcast. He was talking about famous Australian players. Matthew Dellavedova had a good run there with a few years there with LeBron and that Cleveland team. I want to say he was a part of that 16 team that finally beat the Warriors. They ended up getting the championship with Kevin Love there as well. Him and LeBron played well together. Okay. And now they're saying the Eagles will play in Brazil on Friday night in week 1. And that game will be on Peacock. Go figure. I may order Peacock to watch that because it'll be in Brazil. That'll be interesting. And Amazon will carry that wild card game. I do not like the fact that they're doing that. I said that I will protest putting playoff games and making us pay for a streaming service. I've got Amazon Prime. I like the deals they have. I watch some of the shows on Amazon Prime. But what I'll do is I'll cancel it for that month so they won't gouge us folks for that. And I hope people do it, and they shouldn't do that. But I tell you what, a lot of news and notes here. I did read something. Also came out today that the Cowboys and Dak Prescott will have a mutual understanding of his contract. No offers. So he's going to just be in a contract year. Maybe he plays his best here. Oh, I had a let's see. I think I've got a lot, changing the hip drop. Almost forgot. They did away with this hip tackle thing. They have stopped. Okay. I'm trying. Let me make sure I got this right, folks. I do not like that. The grabbing the guy down and slamming him on his hips. Okay. It's hard to explain, but basically, I was taught in American football, Nigel, to tackle at the waist. You hit a guy at the waist, that's supposed to be the textbook, right? If you hit a guy at his knees, you don't want to injure the player, a Nick Chubb type of injury where they're getting an ACL injury. You hit them too high, you're going to get a concussion. Plus, you're probably going to get stiff armed like a Derrick Henry. Where are you supposed to tackle these players? I'm not a fan of that. Hopefully they'll do better. I think there's going to be a lot of missed tackles in the NFL if you can't do the hip drop. So I'm just not a fan of that. And I'm probably saying it right, but if you see the pictures of it, where you're grabbing a guy by his hip and slamming him down, these are big guys. They're fast. They're athletic. They're bigger than these safeties. For example, they're showing like a safety from Cincinnati trying to tackle a big guy like a Mark Andrews, a tight end for the Ravens. Yeah. Nigel says Dellavedova rocked in Cleveland. He sure did, man. Here's Mark Schlereth, 3-time Super Bowl champion, on these rule changes. Just overlook some of the language. He's a little ticked off here. This is on his podcast. He's got a radio show out of Denver. His guy is brutally honest about everything. Love this guy. If I could get him in here.
And, I had this very frank and real conversation. Is when are we going to stop trying to appease people who hate our game? Our game is dangerous. Inherently, it's dangerous. If you play this game, it's not if you get hurt, it's when you get hurt. 100% of the people who play this game are going to get hurt. It's just a fact. And no matter what we do to safen it, there still will be a faction of people who hate our game. F them. I don't care about those people. Let them hate. Let them dislike our game. Let them complain. Let them do whatever it is they're going to do. Because guess what? Regardless of how much you try to change their opinion, there will always be a couple of Karens or Todds who are on your ass. Fuck them.
Yeah, he's real frustrated with that. You know, and they're talking about safety, but they're wanting to make games on. There's going to be 2 games on Wednesday night, which is Christmas, folks. Christmas is going to be on a Wednesday. I mean, you're giving the guys 3 days rest. Are you kidding me? Now, I don't know how that's going to work out. Christmas, yeah, Christmas is on a Wednesday night. Maybe they're coming off a bye. I don't know. That's too late in the season. So this stuff with this hip drop stuff, it sounds like the NFL wants to just make this more offensive. And that's why I'm glad a team like Tennessee here in Nashville, that's why I'm glad that they lean into the offense. They went out, got Tony Pollard. They spent big money on Calvin Ridley. There was a little bit of a build more for Calvin Ridley between the Jaguars and the Patriots up there. Yeah, exactly the same with rugby. Rugby in America, we just call rugby in the backyard, Nigel. We call that pick up smear, where you just pick up the ball. It's a group of you, about 5 or 6 of us, and whoever scores the most touchdowns, it's every man for himself. You just pick the ball up, and you try to get to the goal line, and everybody's tackling you. That's what we call rugby here, you know. But and then whoever gets the most, it's every man for himself. You know, you pick up smear. They had another word for it, but I'm not going to say it. It was inappropriate in the 80s when I was just a yay high, tackling other little kids in the backyard and tearing our shirts up. My mom getting on to me for playing tackle football back them days when I was just little bitty dude. But you know, the good thing about the NFL is that the NFL they'll change things. They'll change things. Dan Campbell, was I was thinking about earlier, the coach for Detroit. You know, they put in, if you win a challenge, you get it back. They've got that rule approved. The new kickoff looks good, but that whole hip drop thing, I mean, he can hit a guy live. Don't hit him too low. Don't hit him too high. Now you can't take him in the middle with the hip. How are you supposed to hit him? Do you want to play flag football out there? So, anyways, yeah. Thank you, Wesley. Nigel, appreciate it, buddy. Appreciate it, man. If you all like the show, please share the show. Please share the show. I covered baseball. I covered Japanese. Ohtani, listen, I hope they don't find out nothing on Ohtani. I want him to be as successful as you do, folks. But if he's gambling on baseball, he's not above that. He's not above that shield. No, Pete Rose wasn't. Babe Ruth wasn't. So, but we got to let it play out. Let it play out. But I just think the mainstream was really, really downplaying that story. So anyways, tomorrow at 8 o'clock Eastern, or 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central, I'll be on the Prime and Prim and Proper show on the NESSP YouTube channel with Sonja Pearson. She's great. Not sure what we're going to talk about. Probably some of these same topics, not unless something big comes up. You know, we'll go over some of these rule changes and everything. So either way, I will see you probably Thursday. I don't know if I have a show tomorrow night, but definitely got a lot of other stuff I do want to talk about. As the sports world turns, it's always news in the wide world of sports. Okay? Have a good night, everybody.